Everything was fine. The job, the team, the routine. Then a new manager showed up. She turned everything into chaos. Insults, ridiculous rules, total mess. My work life became a nightmare. This is the story of how it all went downhill. My crazy boss came at me, and almost the entire staff quit in solidarity. Hey guys, this is a story about my ex-manager who seriously messed up my life. I was working part-time at a small jewelry store while studying for almost 6 months. The store was part of a small chain that had 2 locations in my city, and they were right next to each other. We sold bracelets, rings, chains, and other random stuff. The store mostly catered to people with a tight budget, so we were selling cheap, crappy, and often downright ugly costume jewelry. At the store where I worked, we didn't have a proper manager at the time. So, we were partly overseen by the manager of this second store, and partly by the most experienced colleague on our team, a woman who had been working there for 16 years. Overall, the job was fine. I liked my coworkers, the shifts, and the responsibilities I had. Mostly I unpacked shipments, worked the register, helped customers choose stuff, and did some basic cleaning. I knew that upper management had a few questionable characters, but I didn't really have to deal with them. The rules were pretty simple. Do your job and stay productive. That meant if the bosses suddenly dropped in and saw you doing nothing, you could get a warning, or worse. And above all, sell as much as possible. There was one regional manager, and she'll play a big role in this story, who was a complete nightmare, but thankfully her visits were rare and usually announced in advance. I'm a pretty responsible person. I took my job seriously, was almost never late, and filled in for coworkers when emergencies came up. Like I said, everything was going okay, until, about 6 months in, we got a new manager. At first, I actually thought things would be fine. She was learning the ropes from the other store's manager, and since we had a great relationship with them, we figured everything would go smoothly. Boy, were we wrong. The first couple of weeks were chill. She mostly just watched how we worked and got used to the routine. Then the circus began. The first thing this crazy woman did was hold a team meeting where she straight up said our customer service was terrible. We were all useless, and our sales sucked. Most of my coworkers were older women, in their 40s, 50s, or even 60s, sweet, funny, reliable people. But in her opinion, they were all useless. She wanted a young and fresh team. Then she announced that from now on, she'd be taking full control of the store, and everything would be changing. And oh, it did change, just not in a good way. Here's a list of my favorite things this lady did. She started rearranging all our stuff. Every single day. Nothing was ever in the same place. So every time I needed something, I had to waste time hunting for it. A customer wants a gift card? Sure. If only I knew where the heck she put them this time. She changed their location 3 times in a week. Try telling a loyal customer you can't give them a gift card because you literally can't find one. Real professional, right? Same thing with the stockroom. She'd storm in like a tornado, leave a mess, and I had to clean it all up and try to restore some kind of order. She banned us from unpacking new deliveries after 12 p.m. Keep in mind, the store opened at 10 a.m., and we'd sometimes get 3 big boxes filled with tiny earrings and junk to sort through, all by noon. And guess what? I was the only one on shift, helping customers and doing daily tasks. So the boxes piled up in our tiny storage room until it was impossible to even walk in there. If a customer asked, "Can you check in the back?" I literally couldn't even get in the back. I tried talking to her, explaining that her system just didn't work and we needed more time for unpacking. Her response? "You'd finish everything in 3 seconds if you weren't always chatting." Ma'am, I'm alone in the store. Who exactly am I supposed to be chatting with? At the time, I was still pretty shy and just tried to adapt to her nonsense. Then she started targeting my older coworkers, our assistant manager, a blunt but incredibly kind 55-year-old woman who had worked there for 16 years, suddenly became the main target of constant criticism from our new boss. Out of nowhere, she was accused of being rude to customers, even though no one had ever complained. Then came the claims that she was leaving the store messy and unclean, even though we had just rearranged the jewelry together the night before. The next morning, the manager moved everything around, took pictures, and sent them to our group chat on WhatsApp, along with insults directed at the assistant manager. She also accused her of being lazy just because she watched her 4-year-old grandson on Wednesdays. Our manager would often send nasty messages in the group chat and delete them seconds later, or just leave the group altogether like a sulking child, especially when the assistant manager wouldn't agree to cover her shift at the last minute, usually on awkward solo workdays sandwiched between holidays. In just the 6 months I worked under her, we had to make at least 3 new WhatsApp chats because she kept rage quitting the old ones. Then she went full chaos mode with the work schedule. Because of all the different chats, we constantly had multiple versions of the schedule floating around. She'd put people on shifts without telling or asking them. And if someone asked to be removed from a shift, she'd blow up and demand that we be available 24/7 because, in her words, we're being paid for it. There were times people simply didn't show up for their shift because they didn't even know they had one. And don't get me started on how ridiculous her schedules were, clearly made to mess with people on purpose. One of my older coworkers had to commute nearly an hour and a half to get to the store. She once asked to be scheduled for longer shifts so the trip would be worth it. The manager's response? She scheduled her for 2-hour shifts. Why? She's old and probably can't stand for long anyway. I'm doing her a favor, she said. And then, of course, she started spying on us. Once, she went on vacation for a week, and honestly, it felt like a huge relief. A week without the constant mood swings, false accusations, and general chaos. But before leaving, she issued a new rule. The small trash bin we kept next to the register now had to be placed under the counter. That made it insanely inconvenient to unpack new products. We had to reach under the counter through a tiny 2 centimeters gap to throw anything away. So we just left the bin beside the register while unpacking. She was on vacation. After all, what was she gonna do? Oh, we were so naive. The assistant manager picked up the store phone, and it was her screaming, "Why the hell is that trash can not under the counter? And how dare you unpack merchandise after noon?" This woman had nothing better to do on her vacation than spy on us and watch the store remotely. The final straw was the Saturday before Easter Sunday, one of the busiest days of the year in retail. My shift started at 10 a.m. The manager was supposed to arrive at 11 o'clock. But at the very last moment, she just canceled her shift. She left me completely alone in the middle of holiday madness, and without any change in the cash drawer, because apparently she didn't care enough to give it to me beforehand. Of course, the coins ran out quickly, and customers started getting annoyed because I had no way to give them change. I was panicking. I called a coworker who wasn't even scheduled until 2 p.m. and begged her to come in early so I could at least run to the bank. Luckily, she was already downtown and showed up about 30 minutes later. By that point, I had completely lost it. The manager had just abandoned me, a part-time employee, in the middle of holiday chaos and didn't even pick up the phone when I called her, begging for help. If the roles had been reversed, I swear I wouldn't even be alive to tell this story. That's when it finally hit me. I've had enough. I'm not sure why I tolerated it for so long. Maybe because I was young and needed the money. I sat down and wrote a letter, formal but honest. I said that the schedule was a mess and that the old system, before she arrived, worked way better. I also explained how her behavior was disrupting the workflow. I even emphasized that this wasn't an attack on her management skills, but a sincere attempt to improve teamwork and store atmosphere. I showed it to my coworkers, made sure they were okay with it, and signed it on behalf of myself and the team. I taped the letter to the office door. Next time I worked with her, I asked with a smile if she had seen the letter and what she thought. She smiled sweetly and said, "Everything's fine, nothing to worry about." A couple weeks later, I was finally granted a vacation, one I had been fighting for what felt like forever. And then I get a message from her. "Hey, there will be a staff meeting. I advise you to show up, or else." I replied, "Sorry, I'm on vacation, not even in the country right now. Is this mandatory?" "No apologies. You're coming or not?" "I'm not coming. Like I said, not even in the country." "What exactly do you expect from me?" "I'm on vacation. I'm not required to work." "I don't care. Just be there, or there will be consequences." I didn't even bother replying. I just blocked her for a while. Later that evening, I got a message from one of my older coworkers. "Girl, be glad you didn't come. You were declared the Antichrist of the century." Apparently, the entire reason for the meeting was my letter. Remember that regional manager I mentioned earlier, the other hellspawn? She ripped the letter to shreds and said I had personally attacked our store manager, who, the poor thing, was deeply offended and humiliated by my audacity to write such slander. And get this, they even forwarded the letter to the head office and filed an official complaint against me. I mean, okay? I don't care. Then, that regional devil wanted to know who else was involved. She screamed, "If anyone wants to quit, do it now. I've got the paperwork ready." And then, "Who even is this girl? What is she, 5? She doesn't want to be alone in the store for 6 hours? If she needs the bathroom, let her call security." So yeah, glad I skipped that circus. Apparently, she even made the assistant manager cry. That was the last straw for many of us. I was done. But I wasn't the only one. And then, the plan started forming. At that point, there were 7 of us working at the store, including me. 4 of us were completely fed up with the manager's bullshit. They were disgusted by how I was treated. They knew I was a solid worker who had put up with a lot. We were close, and that led to a fatal decision for the store. We decided to all quit. All of my older coworkers, each of whom had worked there for over a decade, and I left. We left the manager with 2 brand new hires. But we didn't warn her. We sent our resignations directly to the head office, the same place my letter had ended up. We did all this while the manager was on vacation. My older colleagues went to the doctor and took sick leave. But I had a different plan. I wanted revenge. So I stayed. And I followed every one of her dumb rules to the letter. You want me to stop unpacking items after 12 o'clock? Okay, let the cheap junk pile up in the back room. You want me to come in for random shifts without notice? Oops, didn't know. My phone was on airplane mode. But the best part? Our store offered ear piercing services. It used to be optional, but then she suddenly made it mandatory. Thing is, I don't even wear earrings. And doing piercings in the middle of the store always made me super uncomfortable. Until then, no one had ever forced me to do it. But now, the store manager and the regional manager were making me. Standing in front of a customer, holding the ear piercing gun, I just broke down. I started crying and mumbling something like, "I really don't want to do this. Why are you making me?" Yeah, real professional impression, huh? That's how my last month went. The store was a total mess. The newbies had no clue what they were doing, and I had absolutely zero desire to help them. The stockroom turned into a disaster zone, It was almost impossible to even walk in there, and sales dropped even further. And then I left. I walked away and left the manager without a single trained employee. Everyone else had quit in solidarity with me. Last I heard, the other store in our city refused to help her anymore. Her arrogance, laziness, and general attitude had become impossible to ignore. Without us, the experienced staff who kept the place afloat, the store fell apart instantly. Now even the other store manager won't talk to her. She insulted him when he refused to cover her shifts. Rumor has it they're now discussing whether it's even worth keeping that location open. Unfortunately, behind the scenes, there was even more drama between our manager and the assistant, stuff we didn't know at the time. Right now, the assistant is going through therapy, but thankfully she's already doing much better. And honestly, we're all in a much better mental space now. So let us know what you think of this story in the comments. And now, on to the next one. Story 2. Check the website for the email address. Okay, if you say so. Backstory. I have a shoulder injury that's over 10 years old. When it first happened, I got an MRI. They said I had a torn tendon and cartilage damage. Healthcare in my country is free, but I had zero savings at the time to take time off and recover, so I didn't do anything until 2017. That's when I got a decent paying job with lots of sick leave, so I decided to finally deal with it. First, they sent me to physiotherapy to see if that would help or at least strengthen my shoulder. I did the course, and as expected, it didn't fix the issue, though the shoulder did feel a bit better. In early 2018, I had another MRI. They told me someone would get in touch within a couple weeks to discuss the results. 6 months later, after a lot of nagging from my wife, I finally called the hospital to ask what was going on. And surprise! They had closed my case. After a few polite but firm words, they put me back on the waiting list. My wife was happy. I was okay with it. Still didn't understand why they dropped me in the first place. So I waited, and waited, and waited. My wife is amazing, by the way. I'm incredibly lucky to have her. Since I worked during hospital hours and couldn't chase this down myself, she decided to take matters into her own hands. She called the hospital to find out if I was even still on the waiting list. It had been almost 18 months since the MRI, after all. After being transferred a few times, she finally got through to the right department. Unfortunately, the person who picked up was a total Karen. The first thing Karen said after hearing my wife out? "You don't have authorization to discuss this case." Even though I had signed multiple documents giving my wife full authority to act on my behalf. We later guessed that because I had reactivated the case over the phone, maybe that paperwork wasn't properly linked. My wife tried to explain. She didn't need details. She just wanted to confirm if I was still in the system. But Karen wasn't having it. She kept stonewalling. Can Karen call me with the info? No. Can she send me an email? Also no. By this point, my wife was boiling. Finally, Karen said something remotely helpful. Since she wasn't going to contact me herself, I could email them. My wife reminded her that I physically couldn't call during work hours. Karen said, "No problem. He can just send an email." My wife, "Okay, great. What's the email address?" "It's not in any of the papers." Karen, "It's fine. It's on the website." I have a pen and paper ready. You can dictate. The email address is on the website. You will find it there. But in which section of the website will I find it? I understand you're saying, "On the website." But I'm asking, on which page exactly should I look? Where exactly? I said, "It's on the website." At this point, my wife was already worn out by this bureaucratic hell. She thanked Karen for the help and hung up. Frustrated, she called our local MP to get advice on how we could resolve this situation. That evening, while I was driving home, my wife told me about her day. First, a meaningless conversation with the hospital, then a more productive call with the MP. I felt angry and irritated. She was trying to do a good thing, and in return, she got treated with complete disrespect. She told me that, based on the MP's advice, I would need to write a letter to the Ministry of Health. I thought for a second and said, "No." I came home and told my wife I was grateful for her efforts, but that now I'd handle it myself. And I apologized that she had to go through all that. I opened my laptop and downloaded a certain program. It's designed for marketing and scans websites, extracting any contact info it finds, email addresses, names, job titles, phone numbers, and so on, so they can be used later for email campaigns or cold calling. I wrote a letter, thoroughly explaining my situation, the whole story of how I was first removed from the wait list and then put back on it. I expressed doubt about the relevance of the MRI for the surgeons, considering it was done 18 months ago. And of course, I didn't forget to mention the helpful, though terse, advice from Karen. I noted her department and sprinkled her name a few times throughout the letter. Then I ran that program again and got quite a decent haul, 768 email addresses. After filtering out all the non-hospital related ones, I still had over 300. To amplify the effect, I CC'd the Department of Health, the minister himself, and our local MP. I went back to the letter and added a thank you to the MP for their assistance, highlighting how grateful I was, especially during election season. It's amazing how responsive politicians become during times like these. I reread the letter to make sure I hadn't missed anything. Just one detail was missing to emphasize how seriously I was taking this. I want to thank Karen from Support Services for the limited assistance she was able to offer my wife, despite apparently having no authority to help. I also thank Karen for her formal instructions, saying the email I needed could be found on the hospital's website, though without specifying where exactly to look. Following Karen's instructions, I did indeed find that address, one of 319 emails on the hospital's domain that I uncovered. I assume the remaining 768 addresses not from the hospital domain are irrelevant. Although if I get no response, maybe I'll assume otherwise. Or perhaps I should check the subdomains and related sites? If, by following Karen's instructions, this message went to the wrong place, please forward it to the appropriate department or to Karen herself. I'm confident that with her level of informativeness, she'll be able to sort everything out. With that spicy finish, I smiled and hit send. For reference, when I enabled subdomain search, the program found over 3,000 email addresses. It is a large hospital network covering a wide region. Result, week 1 the next day, I went to work and, as usual, checked my emails during lunch. Only this time, I didn't just have messages, I had missed calls. 911, missed call 918, missed call 925. Email number 1 Dear author, thank you for your feedback. I've already spoken to your wife and provided the following information. Your complaint has been registered and forwarded to the head of orthopedics for review and response. I confirm you are currently on the orthopedic waitlist as of April 27, 2018. Your wife's profile in our system is now marked as an emergency contact. We are authorized to share appointment information with her based on your direct consent. I'll also forward your complaint about the lack of support from the patient coordinator. I'll keep both of you informed as soon as I receive updates on appointments with orthopedic specialists. I have a few follow-up questions based on the issues you raised. Would you like the hospital's response to your complaint to be shared with the office of the local MP? Do you give permission for your email to be added to our database? Please feel free to contact me if you'd like to discuss anything further. Sincerely, not Karen. Then came 11/23, Missed call appointment scheduled 1316. Email number 2 with appointment details. Additionally, I received 38 auto replies and 5 emails from staff or departments who wanted to reach out to me. I replied to not Karen that I didn't think it was necessary, for now, to forward the info to the MP's office. Week 2, I went to see the orthopedic surgeon. I expected to wait 2 to 3 hours, but ended up being called in after just 30 minutes. As expected, I needed surgery. I went to the front desk to give my details to be added to the surgical waitlist. The nurse at the counter smiled and noted that my case was a priority, which was strange. I wasn't in urgent need. I've been living with this shoulder issue for 10 years. They told me I'd get more information within a week, including what priority level I was. Week 3, they called to check how flexible I was with dates. The standard question, could I come in on short notice if someone cancels? I said I'd need at least a couple of days to prep things at work. On Friday, I received documents stating I was priority level 2. The operation should happen within 9 months. Week 4, Monday morning, 9:20, missed calls. 9:30, message from my wife. Call me! I called her back during lunch. First thing I asked, so when's my surgery? Week 5, Thursday morning, I got my injections, IVs, and had arthroscopy done. They kept me overnight and discharged me on Friday. My wife called to ask how I was and mentioned that Karen's job description had been updated. If my wife wished, Karen could offer a formal apology. Although Karen's actions were annoying, we didn't need an apology. It was enough that she had been taught how to properly handle things so others wouldn't face the same issues. And of course, the lightning-fast speed with which I ended up getting the surgery made up for everything. Edit, by popular demand, so you don't have to dig through the comments. The program I use to find email addresses is called Atomic Mail Hunter. There are other similar ones too. I live in Australia, and yes, our healthcare system is similar to that of the UK and Canada. For those thinking Karen got off easy, I doubt her co-workers who got my email would agree. So, this story has come to an end. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. Personally, I think the author pulled off something clever, but would I do the same? I don't know. Maybe I'd be too afraid. On one hand, what's the harm? On the other, spamming every possible email address with your story? And not sure. You never know who you might tick off or what they might do in response. But maybe their system works differently, and there's no need to fear that. What do you think? Thanks for watching the video till the end. Check out our previous one. You'll see it right here. And good luck to you.